In this tutorial, we're going to be adding behaviors and some more sprites so that we have this balloon, and every object in Construct can have behaviors that will allow us to use it in a certain way or control it in a certain way. So I've clicked on the balloon, I'm looking in the properties of the balloon, and I'm going to click on behaviors halfway down the list. So we're going to add a new behavior, and that new behavior is going to be solid. So this one is going to be solid when we deal with it in our programming. Okay, so we're now going to add another object, and the ball that kind of knocks the shapes, as the shapes coming down the screen, we're going to be knocking them out with this ball. So we're going to just double click in on the white layout, and we're going to add a sprite, and this one's going to be called ball. And again, we just click anywhere, and that drops in a shape. So we're not going to import this graphic. We're going to actually just create it using an ellipse tool or circle. And so we're going to use, I mean, you can make it any color, but I'm just going to have a light gray internal and a darker gray ring. And the border thickness here, I've set it to 10. We can see we've got fill and border ticks. So just bear in mind that you can change the border thickness. We're going to go with about 10 here. You can type these in as well. Okay, so we're going to draw the circle, we start from the center. And again, we want a perfect circle. And so to do that, you hold down the Shift key. If I don't hold down the Shift key, we end up with that. So you hold down the Shift key and you get the perfect circle. So you drag from the center out. Okay, so we've got some kind of odd gaps around the side. We want it equal, so we just click on the crop transparent edges, and there we've got a perfect circle. Now the collision polygon is less important on this one. We don't need it to follow the circle because we've got another option to do this one, so we can leave that for now. Okay, so we close this, and there we have our ball. Now this is massive, so we need to shrink this down. So we drag the corner, remembering hold down Shift, always hold down Shift to keep that the shape in the correct orientation. So again, kind of drag it to, this will affect how easy or hard your game is. You know, if you make it really big, it's going to make the game easier. If you make it really, really small, it's going to be nearly impossible. So, you know, make it just slightly, don't make it bigger than the balloon, but don't make it too small. All right, so we've got this. Now we're going to add some behaviors to this as well. So we've clicked on the ball, and we can see the properties of the ball. We click on behaviors. And so this again is going to be a solid. So we click on add new behavior and we click solid. We're going to add that. But we're also going to add another two different things. So we don't want this ball moving outside of the area, outside of our game. So, you know, you can see these black lines here. This is going to be the limit to our game. We don't actually want the ball going outside of that. So what we're going to do is we're going to click bound to layout. So that means it's not going to allow it to get any further out. The next thing we need to do is we need to add a physics. So we're going to be using physics because things are going to be falling, they're going to have gravity. And so to interact with those physics objects, we need another physics object, and that ball is going to be part of that. So we just scroll down and choose physics at the bottom of the list there. Again, you know, if I started typing physics, that's the only one that shows up. So that's a nice, quick, easy way to get to things. If you know, some of these lists have tons and tons of choices. If you just start typing, it's much easier. So we add physics. So we've got 3 behaviors related to this ball. Now we need to be able to control the movement of the ball. Now, at the moment, you know, if we click on the screen, we'd have to click on this ball to drag it around. And if our finger's in the way on a mobile device, we can't see exactly where the ball is. So it's going to be a little bit difficult to see how to knock things out of the way. So we're going to create some other object, some other sprite that's going to be invisible, that's going to provide that control for us. So again, I'm just going to double click on the layout. I zoomed out there so I can see a bigger picture. And we're going to add a sprite, and we're going to call this touch control. And we insert that. So we click anywhere. That creates a sprite. Now, we're not actually going to fill this with anything. We don't need to fill this with anything. So I'm going to close that. Now, we've got this invisible sprite now. And if I click away from it, it hasn't just gone; it's still there. It's just nothing in there. So we can see on the right hand side here, we've got the in the project tab, we've got this touch control, and there's a thumbnail of nothing, clearly because there's nothing in there. So just bear that in mind. There's this invisible sprite that's on our game. So I'm going to just spread that out. It needs to cover the whole game, and it needs a bit of needs a bit of space either side of it to ensure that as you move it over, it doesn't you don't lose it completely. So just bear that in mind. Make it bigger than the game itself. Okay, so touch control. We're going to add we're going to add a behavior to this that's different. So we click on. So we've got the touch control selected, and we're going to add behavior. Add new behavior, and this one is drag and drop because we're going to be picking this up and dragging and dropping this across the screen. So we add that. Okay, now at this point, it'd be good to preview the game, but unfortunately, we can't just immediately preview it because at the moment, if we previewed it, we would see this because remember the dotted line indicates where we would see the game start, the game window, as it were, and there's nothing in this window, so we need to move the window down to the bottom of the game here, and to do that, we need to use some code. So we're going to now move to the event sheet and we're gonna start adding some code to this so we can actually test the game. All right, so we're going to add an event. So this is an event in the game. If this occurs, then something's going to happen after it. So the first thing is we're going to add a system event. So I double click on system event, and we want at the start of the layout to move to the correct space in the game. So start of layout. So I started typing start, and that just shows me every command or every event that has the word start in it. So on start of layout. Okay, so we're going to add that next. So on the start of layout, we want to move to somewhere, and so that's going to be a system event. And so we need to set the Y. Nope. So we need to scroll down here. Scroll to. Okay, so we're going to choose the scroll to. So I could have, instead of set, I could have just typed scroll. So we're going to scroll to Y. So this is a Y coordinate we're going to scroll to. And the Y coordinate at the moment says 0. Well, we can put numbers in here, but we can also put variables in here. We haven't got the variables yet, so we'll just add the numbers for now. And so let's say 700 pixels. Okay, let's try that. And we're going to run this game. Let's see what happens. Okay, there we go. So we moved to the game started and moved to the correct place. Now, what happened was you saw that this ball um, uh, fell to the bottom because it's a physics object, and so a physics object picks up um, certain aspects of the game environment, the physics environment, and so gravity kind of pulled it down. Okay, it didn't fall off the screen because it's bound to layout. It wants to, but it can't. Okay. So what we need to do is we need to stop it falling. It still needs to remain a physics object, but we need to make it not fall. So one of the things we can do is we can turn off the density. So we can set that to 0. So all I did there was I couldn't select the ball because the ball is behind this touch control. So every time I click there, I'm selecting the touch control. So the other way of selecting objects is just selecting them in the project panel. And so you can see that as I click through these, I'm selecting them. So I selected the ball. It came up with the properties of the ball. And obviously, because it has a physics object, a physics behavior, sorry, it gives us the option of changing that. So I changed the density to 0. What we're also going to do is we're going to pin the ball to the touch control because the touch control is we want it to control the ball where it moves around. So again, that's programming. I will need to add a behavior, and that needs to be on the touch sensor, I believe. Let's try that. Behavior, add new behavior, and pin. Okay. We're going to add the pin behavior to the touch control. And so at the start of this, again, at the very start of the layout, what we want to do is we want to select the ball, and we want to pin that. No. Okay, so fiddlesticks. Okay, so we've changed the ball density to 0, but we need to control the ball. Okay, so we've changed the physics. So we've changed the physics to density to 0. What we need to do is we need to control the ball using the touch control, and to do that we need to pin the ball to the touch control. So there's two steps to this. We click on ball, and we're going to add another behavior, and that behavior is called pin. We're going to add the pin behavior to the ball, and then in the event sheet and the start of layout, we actually want to pin that. So when we go to ball, so we added an action, we added an action there. We go to ball, and we want to pin. So I've just typed in pin, and we want to pin to object. So we click next, and the object we want to pin to is the touch control. Okay, so we can leave it as position and angle. In fact, yeah, that's fine. So click done. And now if you play the game, the ball doesn't fall. And now anywhere we click, because remember, anywhere we click, we're selecting the touch control sprite. But when we drag and drop the touch control sprite, we're moving the ball. Okay, so now we've got control over, and we can click anywhere. We don't have to click on the ball to do that. We can click anywhere on the screen. Okay. In the next tutorial, we're going to add some of the other elements to this and then start the heavy duty programming.